going back to WandaVision, I talked about the first 5 episodes of that. If you haven't checked that out, I'll link it or put it around somewhere so you can find it. But yeah, I talked about the first 5 episodes of that show. So I figured I should wrap it up and talk about the last 4. I think there's 9 total episodes. So the last 4 that I watched, the one being the Halloween episode, which happens after we get the big reveal, the big Quicksilver reveal, which, ends up being a complete fake out, which I bit the bait on it. If you go back and watch that, I talked about how, and spoilers, by the way, if you haven't watched WandaVision at this point, go check it out. If you haven't, then you want to keep listening anyway, that's all cool. But spoilers in 3, 2, 1. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. Quicksilver and that whole reveal. Yeah. So I completely took the bait on that reveal when it happened. And if you go back and watch what I said about it, I was like, oh, this is how they're going to introduce the multiverse and all of that. No, I got a little bit ahead of myself, but hey, I will say this show got a lot of fan theories, and that's probably why a lot of people didn't love the ending of this show, is because of the fan theories that it got. I got a lot of fan theories, a lot of people coming out saying, oh, this is going to happen. Mephisto is going to show up. These characters are going to show up, and, they're going to introduce the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, the Reed Richards thing, which ended up being an absolute nothing burger. That's the thing. You get a lot of these fans that get into it and they want to try and predict the story. I do it a lot myself, as you saw, and I was wrong there. So, it is what it is. But, it's a shame because I'm kind of sad the way that all went down. And I guess I'll get into it when I talk about the last episode. But, the episodes 6 and 7 for me, just honestly weren't that memorable. 7 being the Malcolm in the Middle one. I don't really have all that much to say about those. I do kind of like how, like I said, they go with the sitcom theme, but they definitely kind of leave it after a while, and it starts to kind of fizzle out of the show as you kind of start to peel back and figure out what is going on. But one prediction I had actually that was correct was the Agatha prediction, which ends up being the case that she's the one that is pulling the strings, and the Agatha all along thing, and it ends up being this big reveal that she was the one manipulating the what did I call it? The simulation, which was what I was referring it to, which is the hexagon, the hex. She's basically been manipulating a lot of it as well, like because she's a witch, so she can use those kind of she can manipulate in that world as well. So I was kind of right. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit more somebody more sinister. But I like Agatha as a villain. I think she's definitely, one of the strongest parts of the series. I really enjoyed that character a lot, and I'd like to see her come back in some capacity. But yeah, it definitely blindsided me. I really liked that reveal a lot, that she was kind of behind a lot of the crazy, wild things that were happening in the Hex that were outside of Wanda's control. So I thought that was kind of a neat reveal, and the way they did it in that kind of sitcom-y, goofy kind of manner, I thought was the show has a lot of personality. I'll give it that. And I liked the Malcolm in the Middle stuff as well, as I mentioned. I thought those were some funny references in there. But the episode I actually thought was my favorite outside of the pilot, which I still do love. I know a lot of people don't love it, but I do. But the episode I loved was, I think it's episode 8, and that's where you get the full backstory of Wanda, from her childhood and I didn't know she had her witch powers before she interacted with the Mind Stone. That was something that I found to be really interesting, because you get the scene where she actually comes in contact with the Mind Stone, and the reason she did is because they wanted to see what her powers would do with it, because they knew she had powers, and they wanted to see how they would, go with the Mind Stone. So I thought that was kind of a really fascinating way to kind of tie her into the whole Infinity storyline, because she definitely has that tie-in from and helps kind of flesh out the stuff you see in Ultron a little bit more. It makes that movie a little bit more valuable. And speaking of that, you get the scene with Vision and Wanda that I think is a really well-written scene. I think it takes place around the time of Avengers Age of Ultron, and it's like when Vision was watching Wanda and making sure she doesn't go loose and break stuff and hurt people, because it was after she injured all those people at the beginning of Civil War or something like that, or Ultron, or one of those movies. I don't remember. I think the one where she hurts people is Civil War. Could be wrong. No, it's Ultron. It's Ultron. I'm sorry. I don't remember. I don't remember. No, it's Civil War. Whatever. But yeah, tell me below which one it is. But besides the point, yeah, I just, with this character though, I'm going to get into kind of some of my gripes with the show because actually I'll talk about it at the finale because that was my least favorite episode. But going back to the episode I really liked, I liked how the way they were able to show a lot of the backstory of Wanda and how Agatha kind of walks her through it because it gives Agatha some purpose to the story a lot more than just kind of being like, another villain, because that's kind of what the route I was thinking that they were going to go with her. And they kind of did, but they made it at least interesting and they made her at least interesting of a character. And through that, they use her as kind of a tool to draw exposition out of Wanda. So I thought that was a really kind of a cool way to do that. And using your villain as a means to draw exposition from your character, from your hero. So, yeah, I thought that was neat. And Agatha was a really cool addition to this show. Yeah, then we get into, and I think the episode ends on a good cliffhanger too, where she has the kids pretty much held at their will. And, she's basically forcing Wanda's hand a little bit to use her powers. I thought that was kind of cool. So then you get into the final episode, the finale of the episode of the series, not of the series, of the season. I think they're going to make another one. I don't know. We'll get into that, but this show kind of fell off the rails for me in this final episode, man. I was not a fan of this final episode. There was just all of the CGI Marvel action just completely flies in your face as soon as this episode kicks off. And from there, you just get a lot of CGI, a lot of the character development that you saw in the last episode kind of gets thrown away in exchange for, the visuals. And it kind of just, it just doesn't fit the tone of the show because you didn't really get a lot of action sequences throughout the entire series. And now we're just getting this giant action finale and it just feels so out of place. I don't know. I feel like they could have come up with a more clever way to finish this series off, to kind of fit the tone of how they were kind of just going for this wacky story. They just kind of default to this action finale and it just kind of, it doesn't really work for me, man. I don't know. The whole plant with the runes and all of that. I mean, I think that's definitely something we're going to see Wanda use the runes in some way or learn how to create runes. That's probably what she uses the book for. But I just didn't find it all that fascinating. It's just a lot of CGI beams and stuff. Like, you even get a beam in the sky moment, which will lead into my biggest plot hole with this entire series. You get the beam in the sky moment, which shows Wanda destroying the Hex. And quick aside, you gotta love the beam in the sky. It's a movie television trope. I'm a big beam in the sky guy. So I think I mentioned the beam in the sky in my Godzilla review. But basically, Wanda shoots the beam in the sky and destroys the Hex. And basically, with that, Agatha lifts all the mind control off of Wanda's, all the people that she's basically been controlling in this simulation. And my biggest thing with this is the mind control factor of it. It's the fact that Wanda never faces any consequences for completely taking over an entire city of people and controlling all of their minds, ripping them from the family. You get the woman that comes up to her who's like the bad guy in the pilot. She's kind of like the snarky woman at the pool party. She shows up and she's like, I just want to speak to my daughter. Like, she's locked in a closet. I'm like, damn, this is getting dark. I was like, wow. I was like, whoa, this is heavy. And guess what? It doesn't pay off. It just does not pay off. I wish Wanda had some sort of consequences to face for completely overtaking an entire city. Like, that's something I definitely want to see them address in the second season of this show. They need to, if that happens. It needs to be addressed because it makes no sense for the fact that she faces nothing for, usually when characters make those kind of decisions, they need to face some sort of consequence for literally controlling entire people. They're like, and then I love the Monica Rambeau moment, which again, she gets completely wasted in this episode. She does nothing. The entire Hayward storyline, which again, I will get into why I hate that character, but I love that scene when she talks to Wanda and she's like, yeah, they'll never understand what you did for them. And it's like, well, what exactly did she do for them? Control their minds, hold them against their will? Yeah. And quick on Hayward before I go on to Falcon and Winter Soldier. Quick on the Hayward thing. I hate that character. It was a horrible character. So cheesy, so corny. The typical warmongering, military leader that just wants to weaponize whatever the MacGuffin is or character is. Boring as hell. And I like Randall Park, what he did in the show, and the girl from Thor. I forget her name. I'm sorry. But she was really interesting, and they just kind of throw those characters completely to the side. They don't really get any resolution, and that's that. So the ending for me was blah. I liked how they tried to make it contained and didn't try to set up a bunch of stuff. That's not what I really wanted. I'm happy they told their own story and how Wanda becomes the Scarlet Witch, but I don't know. It just wasn't as satisfying and fulfilling as I wanted it to be. And it is what it is. Just a lot of CGI and not enough character in that final episode for me, and not enough payoff with any of the other side stories that they tell. And again, Hayward, horrible character. So boring, so bland, so useless throughout the entire series. So